I tried an experimental drug and now I regret it. Hi, my name is Larissa. I'm 25 years old, and yesterday my friend Todd said that he heard that there's a new drug called ariliperoid, and the lab downtown is looking for people who want to test it, he said. He also said that I hear that they're paying $1,000 for a week of taking the drug. As he was telling me, I said, I might, but I'm not the drug type, and especially a new drug. I ended up looking it up that night and found that he wasn't kidding. But I scrolled down and it had some serious warnings saying they're not responsible for death or anything that happens while on or off the drug. It also said that your phone will be taken and you'll be put in a cell for a week. I actually decided that it was worth that $1,000 and decided that I'd head up there tomorrow. The next day rolled around and I got in my car and drove to the lab. I entered it and I felt extremely weirded out because I was the only person there, except for a lady behind the counter who looked to be around her 70s in a dress you would see on someone in one of those old 1920s to 40s TV shows. I went up to the counter and said, I'm here for the test of ariliperoid. And she looked at me, gave me a sincere look, and handed me a paper and said, get that back to me in the next hour. It starts tomorrow, but we'll have to put you in your cell tonight. I remember that I started getting a really bad feeling, but I looked at the paper. The only thing on it beside the text was a line that simply said, signature, and under that said, after signing, there is no backing out of the experiment, not even for health-related issues. I don't know why I didn't run out of that place while I had a chance, but I read what it had to say, and it just kept mentioning all the potential symptoms like death, blindness, organs dissolving. For whatever reason, I signed that fucking piece of paper. After I signed that piece of paper, I walked back up to the lady at the counter and handed her the paper. But while I was handing it, I got my first good look at her eyes. They were the deepest black I've ever seen. I remember thinking, that can't be normal. There has to be something wrong with her. I didn't mention it, and after she looked at my signature, she walked somewhere behind her. I couldn't see. She came back 5 minutes later, looking slightly disheveled. She told me to follow her, so I did follow her. After about 3 minutes of walking, we stopped, and she turned around and started walking back. Before I could say anything, some guards who wore strange insignia grabbed me and started leading me into a room with a tiny light, a toilet, and a bed. Before I could ask, is this where I'll be staying, they shut the door and I heard a key turning. I ran to the door and tried to open the door, but it didn't open. I remember thinking, of fucking course it didn't open. I heard it lock. I was tired, so I decided the real money starts tomorrow, so I should just sleep. I ended up falling asleep, and when I awoke, I heard banging on the door and someone shouting, open this fucking hatch before we come in there and give it to you ourselves. I realized then I must have slept through the entire night. I ran to that door and opened the hatch and saw 2 guards standing there with a baggie that seemed to have a brightly colored pill in it. The guards said, take this and we'll be back tomorrow. I did as they said, and I grabbed the baggie and took it to the bed and emptied out its contents, which was just a blue pill with red undertones. I got some water out of the sink and popped the pill in my mouth and drank the water. I remember feeling queasy just 4 minutes later. I went over the sink. I really felt like throwing up and just thought that was really fucking fast. Usually it takes at least 15 minutes. No matter how queasy I was, I didn't throw up. After about 30 excruciating minutes of leaning over the toilet, I got up and went to the bed to lay down and get over the high, or whatever I should call this shit. I laid down on the bed and got in the covers, and that's when I first heard it, scratching in the walls and on the bed frame. I was terrified. I felt like a kid while I pulled the covers over my head, as if it would protect me from whatever was there. After about 10 minutes, it just stopped. I was thinking, what the fuck? I finally took that thin blanket and looked ahead of me, and I almost fainted. There, about 5 feet ahead of me, was a black humanoid-shaped creature staring at me, not making the slightest of noise. It wasn't even breathing. Just then I heard the scratching again and looked away for just a second and looked back, and it was gone. Just then my heart dropped, looking all around the room. The room was so small, nothing that tall would be able to hide in this room. I then made the stupidest decision out of all of my stupid decisions. I got up. I stood up from the bed and moved to the side of the room where the toilet was. Just then I saw what was making that noise. It was another black humanoid figure, but this one was different. This one had 15 arm-like appendages that all stretched out 10 feet. And just then I saw its red-hot eyes look straight at me. Just then I thought, this isn't from that fucking pill. Nothing from a pill could ever make someone hallucinate something so horrible. Just then it screamed, so loud my eardrums felt like bursting. I awoke with the guards yelling for me to get the fuck out there so I could get the next dosage. I managed to get up, though my legs hurt like hell and my ears were still ringing. I walked to the hatch and saw the same guards with a baggie with the same blue pill in it. I managed to ask them, what day is it? They just laughed and said, it really fucked you up, and walked away. I guess that gave me confirmation that it had to be the next day. So I went to my bed and opened the baggie and emptied it of its contents. One blue pill with red aftertones again. I swallowed it and almost immediately felt like throwing up. But this time I knew I wouldn't, so I just leaned back and laid down. Just as last night I heard scratching and looked up and saw the same figure, but this time it was 4 feet from me. And once I looked away, it disappeared. I continued that same process of scratching and that fucking figure getting closer every day until the last day. It started the same way I took the pill, but the figure didn't disappear when I looked away. It just stayed there for hours, and the scratching was closer to my head. I was compelled to touch it, but I didn't. Soon, the guards came and didn't even notice the creature, and they said, "Come on, time to leave." I just got up looking at the creature for every moment until I was out of the cell and got my money. I left the building and turned around, and it was there, staring at me the whole time it was staring at me, staying a good half-mile away from me. The next day I talked to Todd and brought it up, and he said, "I've never even heard of such a thing, and we don't even have a lab in this town." I ended up cussing him out for being an asshole. I immediately left and drove down there, but when I reached where I had been trapped for a week, I saw nothing but a fucking parking lot. Like, what the fuck? I drove home in a panic because I fucking creature is still behind me, but closer. I ended up Googling that location and found out it used to be a drug testing location in the 1920s, but got closed down because everyone who was exposed to that building ended up dying a year to the day they first entered that building. I'm writing this now because it's been a whole fucking year of that thing following me getting closer. But now, as I write this, it's right in front of me, just like the last night. And I just started hearing the scratching, but now it's louder. I don't think I'll get another chance, like last time. Please help me. I tried an experimental drug and now I regret it.